If you have already perused my papers or viewed my video presentations titled On the Ontological Difference Between Medieval Europe and the Atlanticist West and The Modern World, White and Western, I would like to take this opportunity to delve into the specific notion of the white man's burden. This idea is rooted in the liberal humanistic belief of progress, the progression of history, and the end of history. It assumes that humans are the ultimate measure of everything, the arbiters of both the visible and invisible, and that human reason is the pinnacle of evolution. It asserts that through self-enlightenment and the acquisition of knowledge, humans can shape their own destiny through the unfolding of history. This concept is echoed through the story of Faustus, where one must sacrifice something for a teleological end. According to the proponents of this ideology, the general idea of the white man's burden is the duty to enlighten humanity and provide all mankind with the tools to evolve towards a determined final end. However, it is important to note that Rudyard Kipling's poem, The White Man's Burden, was written in the context of the Philippine-American War. The poem served as a call for the US to annex and colonize the Philippine Islands after they were acquired during the Spanish-American War in 1898. As an imperialist poet, Kipling urged American readers and listeners to embrace the pursuit of empire, while also cautioning them about the personal sacrifices and hardships involved in building and maintaining such an empire. The phrase, "the white man's burden," was interpreted by American imperialists as a justification for imperial conquest, portraying it as a mission to civilize and enlighten other nations. The concept shares great overlap with the American expansionist doctrine of manifest destiny. While empires have long been present throughout human history, what sets apart the imperialism of this particular civilization is its distinctive humanistic, secular, Gnostic, and materialist nature. The concern lies not merely with imperialism or the territorial ambitions of political powers in general, but rather with the philosophical and ontological underpinnings of this specific powerful entity and the worldview upon which it is built. Behind these two empires, Britain and America, there stands the liberal world order. This penetrates beyond superficial aspects of human concerns and delves into the essence of humanity's spirit, soul, and existence. The crucial nature of this distinction cannot be overstated, particularly in relation to future developments and considerations. Britain and America are only forms. The liberal world order is the essence that operates through these empires. Our problem is not with the forms, but with the spirit that animates the forms. The liberal world order is a demon. Like all demons, it must be isolated and then undergo exorcism. Sadly, what is seen as demonic to me has thus far been John Bull and Uncle Sam's raison d'être. They carry all nations towards the lofty ideals of the liberal world order, which they consider to be the only true meaning of civilization. Naturally, our sympathies are supposed to lie with Uncle Sam and John Bull. Their noble endeavor to establish complete liberal hegemony is a weightier burden for them than for the backward barbarians who lack the ability to help themselves. And indeed, they must be helped. The barbarians get a free ride whether they want it or not. This is, at least, how the proponents of liberalism perceive the situation, and of course, they must perceive it this way. It is the authoritative dogma of their religion after all. Liberal humanism, to them, is the one true religion, and all other religions are false superstitions that prevent progress and undermine civilization. This mentality was perhaps best addressed by the strongest anti-liberal voices and forces of the 20th century who sought to counter the liberal hegemonic desires of Britain and America. Germany's then leader, Adolf Hitler, commented on this mentality of liberals with the following sarcastic remarks. Quote, "They have always fought only for God and for religion. They have never had any material aims. But precisely because the English never fought for a material goal, the good Lord then rewarded them so richly materially. Because England has always acted only as the champion of truth, justice, and all virtues. God has not failed to reward the English. For this, they have been richly blessed. In 300 years, they have subjugated about 40 million square kilometers of the Earth's space. All this, of course, not out of egoism, not out of any desire for domination or wealth or pleasure. No, on the contrary, all this was done only on behalf of God and for the sake of good and pious religion. Of course, England did not want to be the only champion of God, but it always invited others to participate in this noble struggle. It did not try to bear the main burden alone, but for such works pleasing to God, one can always look for fellow fighters. They continue to do so today, and it has paid rich dividends for England. As I said, 40 million square kilometers, and English history is one sequence of rapes, of extortions, of tyrannical maltreatments, of oppressions, of plunderings. There are things which really could not have been conceived in any other state or among any other people. One waged war for everything. One waged war to expand one's trade. One waged war to cause others to smoke opium. But one also waged war, if necessary, to gain gold mines, to gain dominion over diamond mines. These were always material goals, but they dressed them up as noble and virtuous ideals. Even in the last war, it was led only for these goals. The fact that the German colonies were taken along the way, that was God's will again. That our fleet was taken away, that the German foreign assets were cashed in. These are the side effects of this noble conflict for the holy religion." End quote. Presently, Uncle Sam of the United States of America carries the white man's burden, succeeding his predecessor John Bull of Great Britain. However, what does this burden entail that compels Uncle Sam and John Bull to lead the savages of the world towards their specific and exclusive concept of civilization, while dismissing other disagreeable perspectives? Why is the absolute dominance of this worldview deemed essential? Why must it possess an unchallenged monopoly over every aspect of human existence? The answer is rather straightforward and can be comprehended through Carl Schmitt's friend-enemy distinction. Liberalism as a worldview revolves around the concept of non-identity. It perceives all identities as actual or potential chains of slavery that must be shattered to attain true liberation. Liberalism advocates for the emancipation of humanity from all forms of enslavement. Echoing the words of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the Geneva-born political philosopher, liberalism interprets the quote, "Man is born to be free, but everywhere he is put in chains," as a call to wage a total war against any adversaries of this highly particular and specific notion of freedom. This war is all-encompassing, targeting everything and ultimately challenging the very source of everything that many of us recognize simply as God. The progressive nature of liberalism ensures that the white man's burden is never-ending. Whenever a specific form of barbarism, superstition, oppression, brutality, vice, ignorance, or slavery is overcome, and human reason seemingly enlightens these so-called savages, a new realization emerges. Behold, there is still much more left to do. The white man's burden continually transforms itself, finding fresh causes to spread its light of reason upon the civilizing, yet never fully civilized humanity of the world. This is exactly why the United States of America does what she does today. Since her very foundation in 1776, she has been possessed by the Faustian spirit of liberalism. She feels herself destined to take on the mantle that the British Empire left behind. She is the vehicle by which the liberal world order continues her mission.
青く果てしなく続く南の海、ヤシの木で囲まれた小さな島々が星空のように散らばっている。その真ん中に一つ夢のような美しい島があった。その昔、この島は5羽の王様が治めておられた。島の人々は優しいこの王様のもとに毎日を楽しく暮らしていた。ある日、この島の港へ 不思議な黒い船が姿を現した。島はたちまち上を下への大騒ぎとなった。大臣は慌てふためき、事の次第を王様へ言上した。船から上陸して宮殿へ飛行したのは鼻の尖った白人である。お情け深いゴアの王様、私たちは遠い国からはるばる参った商人でございます。このお国の人々とどうか仲良く兄弟のように付き合っていただきたいのです。つきましては、我々は毎日船へ帰るのも大変ゆえ、この島のどこかに私たちの休息できる土地をお譲り願いたいのでございますが、いかがでしょう。私たちの船には世界各地の宝物がぎっしり積み込んでございます。まずペルシャの絨毯、エジプトのタバコ、インドの宝石、シャムの首飾り、安南カンボチャのサラサ、シナ広東の茶、同じく北京の黄金、そして羊毛、砂金。これだけの宝物を陸揚げして王様にご覧に入れたいのでございますが、それにはどうしても並べる土地が必要でございます。なに、その広さは1000廊下ほどの大きさがあれば十分でございます。早速ご承知くださいましてありがとう存じます。お情け深いゴアの王様。大臣よりの中心に驚かれた王様が約束が違うではないかと船長に掛け合うと、いや、ごもっともでございます。王様は我が国の商法をご存じないのですな。これが我が国のしきたりです。ゴアの王様は最後までよく戦った。しかしついには敗れ、この美しい島も海賊の手にかすめ取られた。千個不悦を入れざるジャングルに古き石像あり。刻みて曰く、月明明るき夜、東方天使の国より白馬にまたがりたる神の兵来たりて、必ずや民族を解放せん。
Despite my criticisms of the British Empire and the American Empire seemingly being a criticism of imperialism as a whole, I must reiterate here that this is in fact not the case at all. Imperialism itself is not the core issue, nor is the expansion and subjugation of any people by any powerful entities. Throughout history, many empires have engaged in such actions. However, what sets apart this particular civilizing power is its philosophical and ontological foundation, as well as its spiritual essence. It fosters a destructive spirit that uniquely affects the human soul, leading some Christians to liken it to the spirit of the Antichrist for simplicity's sake. This is the essence of the modern world, characterized by its whiteness and Western ideology. As I have previously discussed in my response article to Mega Lillywhite called They gave us modernism. There is a theological evil that surpasses mere considerations of political violence. It is a deeper violence inflicted upon the human soul itself, which is at the very core of our divine image. Most empires do not blaspheme divinity the way that empires of the liberal world order do. Far from it, they maintain a respect for that which is considered sacred by the pious peoples. It is important to note that the concept of God holds the highest perennial significance in human consciousness, taking ontological precedence over all, including humanity itself. It is through this traditional understanding that the possibility of any high culture arises. However, the liberal perspective dismisses such foundational principles as superstitious and backward. Consequently, any expressions rooted in these principles are deemed incapable of producing civilization. Civilization, according to the liberals' notion of progress, can only exist in one objective sense, in which the liberal becomes the arbiter of what constitutes civilization. While the barbarians believe that man is made in the image of God, the enlightened champions of human reason assert that God is made in the image of man, asserting the exact opposite belief. These self-delusions, akin to Faustus, are intrinsic to the white man's burden, an enduring weight that continually transforms and consumes the soul of humanity. For those who have succumbed to the Faustian demon, as a Christian, I can only pose one question to them. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul? The contemporary phenomenon commonly referred to as the woke movement can be seen as another incarnation of the enduring white man's burden. The spirit driving this movement shares a kinship with the Faustian essence that animated the free-thinking liberals of the Enlightenment era centuries ago. Today's progressive liberals, much like their classical liberal predecessors, employ universal moral arguments rooted in the same philosophy and worldview. They have long made appeals to concepts such as human rights or the rights of man, always aligning with the philosophical principles and ideals of their libertine heritage. Pursuing the ever-evolving projects and goals of the woke movement is considered common sense in their eyes, just as it was during the time Thomas Paine wrote his book Common Sense. When the liberal speaks of common sense, he implicitly asserts a universal epistemological view that is rooted in the biases of his own worldview's principles. But this common sense he speaks of is neither common nor is it sensible. Quite to the contrary, it is an uncommon insanity that has infected the minds of many today and continues to infect humanity. Yet how does this mental patient called a liberal respond? He responds by accusing his opponents of backwardness, superstition, and barbarity. In his sick mind, he has convinced himself that he is the enlightened one, and he looks towards those with an illiberally divergent mind as lesser than. "But it must not be so," he says, "for once the others too are enlightened, they too shall know this common sense." Thus the liberal goes out and spreads his sickness of the mind to all until this plague has infected the entirety of the human race. This is the white man's burden. Beware of it, all ye savages of the world. To those who criticize me while failing to properly grasp my perspectives or misinterpret my writings and presentations with shallow and ungenerous readings, you inadvertently validate everything I assert about this subject matter and are living proof of the accuracy of my thoughts. To paraphrase Demetrius Zima, you liberals speak to us of progress, liberalism, and civilization, just as if we were savages and did not know the meaning of these words. But these grand words, which you liberals take out of their proper sense, it is we who taught them to you, and have given you the real meaning of them and the realities they represent. Every one of these words has and will always have forever a thoroughly Christian signification, and on the day when that sense perishes, all of your sincere liberalism, all real civilization that you build upon will perish also." End quote. According to the liberal, the white man's burden will persist until the complete defeat of Christ. However, as a Christian, I firmly believe that this will never come to pass. On the contrary, the white man's burden will cease when the Antichrist is ultimately vanquished and Christ is acknowledged as the ultimate victor by all. For at the name of Jesus every knee shall bow, of those in heaven and of those on earth and of those under the earth, and that every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father.
Is too full of those that are crying down. Down with the police, down with the churches, down with government. Can you build anything down? You cannot. Certainly time in our nation to change our words. Let's begin now to use the word up. Up from all of this filth. Up from this violence. Up from this indifference of court. Up to the hidden battlements of eternity. Up to God.
Into all the world and preach the good news to every creature. Whoever receives me will be saved, and I will love him and will come and make his heart my home. And remember, I will be with you always, even to the end of the world.
Scendiamo in campo contro le democrazie plutocratiche e reazionarie dell'Occidente. Popolo italiano, corri alle armi!